Everything's connected.
Bhagavad Gita.
What Bhagavad Gita? That's easy to say because I've been telling you, Bhagavad Gita, Uddhava Gita, they're analogous, right?
Yeah, I remember a verse. I don't remember it well enough to recite it. But...
Give us the gist. I mean, it's nice to say, well, I remember a verse from Brihadaranyaka Purana, but I can't remember it. Help us. We're drowning out here.
It was about offering all of your fruits.
Vegetables too?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, there's a one verse that says, offer to me a flower, of water.
Oh, okay. That's not a bad one. And then there's also Yat Karoshi Yadashnasi. All that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away should be done as an offering to me. Those are nice connections. But there's a more specific connection. So you're thinking of the last verse that we read then. That's the connection that you're making, right?
Yes.
Where he says, if you cannot detach your mind from the objects of the senses and thus absorb it completely in me, then offer the results of all your activities to me without considering the fruits of your labor to be your personal property. So what's that verse kind of sound like in Bhagavad Gita?
I forget where it comes from, but there's a gradation of different types of devotion, where he says, just fix your mind on me. If you can't do that, then do bhakti yoga. If you can't do that, then try to work for me with being detached from the fruits.
I think you're on the right track, or you're on the same track I was. I don't know if that's always necessarily the right track. So this is from the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. In the 12th chapter, there are 4 verses where Krishna kind of sums up everything that he's kind of said in chapters 6 through 11. So he says, Mayeva mana adhatsva mai bhutam niveshaya nivashishya mayeva atma urdvam nasamshaya. It says, fix your mind exclusively on me and place your intelligence in me. Without a doubt, you will reside with me henceforth. So, in a sense, this is the essence of spiritual instruction, the essence of Krishna consciousness. Same thing Krishna is telling Uddhava here in the 11th canto, right? Just fix your mind on me. Then he says, Atachittam samadhatum na shaknoshi maistya abhyasa yogena tato mam ichaptum dhananjaya. If however you're unable to fix your mind on me, O Dhananjaya, then try to attain me by discipline. Abhyasa yoga. So this is yoga practice. And then he says, Abhyase pi asamarto simat karma paramo bhavaha adartam api karmani kurvan siddhim avapsasi. If you're unable to practice even this, then hold my work as the supreme object. Work for me. Merely by acting for my sake, you will attain perfection. And then he says, Ahoitadapya sakto si kartam madhyogama ashritaha. Madhyogama ashrita. Take shelter of my yoga. Sarva karma palatyagam tatakuru yatatmavan. But if even this isn't possible for you, then taking shelter of my yoga, act with self-restraint, renouncing all the fruits of action. So it's a kind of a continuum. Now, there are a couple of about this. He's talking abhyasa yoga. He's talking about regulated bhakti yoga, regulated or regulative bhakti yoga. And Srila Prabhupada in his purport makes the point. Well, doesn't make the point overtly. He does it through his explanation. He talks about the regulative principles of devotional service. What do you think he means when he talks about following the regulative principles of devotional service?
Following the Guru's instructions.
Oops. That's it, pretty much it. It could be it. But I'm thinking of something that demands a little more.
Following the 9 processes.
Following the 9 processes of devotional service. Anybody else? Prabhupada. Here's how Prabhupada gives this verse. My dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, Dhananjaya, if you cannot fix your mind on me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of bhakti yoga.
If you're not a beast, you need you.
Ooh. Nobody's going to say no meat eating, no intoxication,
I thought
no
I wasn't
illicit
sure
sex.
if that was a devotional
Yeah.
service.
Yeah.
I thought
That's
that was like, that's kind of what I thought too. I didn't want to say that because I feel like if I said that, I'd be like,
I thought that was, I thought
I had the buzzer so ready.
It was too obvious.
I had the buzzer so ready, and nobody was willing to bite. Srila Prabhupada talks about, actually he talks about the 9 processes of devotional service, or the 64 processes of devotional service. He says, to practice the principles of bhakti yoga, one should, under the guidance of the spiritual master, of an expert spiritual master, follow certain principles. Rise early in the morning, take bath, enter the temple, offer prayers, chant Hare Krishna, collect flowers to offer the deity, cook foodstuffs to offer the deity, take prasadam, and so on. So when Srila Prabhupada, sometimes Srila Prabhupada talked about regulative principles. It's those 4 nisheth, those 4 rules. Don't rape nuns. Don't kill cows. Don't throw all your money away in Las Vegas or at some Indian casino. What's the other one? Oh, don't drink your brains out. Right?
brains out.
In other words, don't be crazy, right? I mean, essentially, that's don't be crazy. That's not devotional service. Not drinking. God, you know how many people in AA don't drink, or NA don't use X? About half. It's still a lot, but that's not devotional service, and it's not devotional service. To only have intimate relationships with, with your husband or wife. And it's not devotional service to eat hummus instead of hamburgers. That's not devotional service. When Srila Prabhupada, when the scriptures talk about following the regulative principles of devotional service, they're talking about engaging in the processes of devotional service under the direction of the spiritual master, as Goloka. Goloka pointed out the essence of it. It all starts with that. That's actually the very threshold to the temple of bhakti. Taking shelter of a guru, taking initiation and instruction from the guru, and serving the guru with confidence. So that's that. See the Jiva Goswami or Vishwanath, I can't remember now. One of the commentators on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu said that these first three things, out of the 64 angas of sadhana bhakti, they're the threshold to the temple of bhakti. If you don't cross the threshold, you don't get inside. Right? So everything begins with that. So that's one connection. Are there any other connections? You want me to read the translations of all the verses again?
What verse numbers were?
20, 21, 22, and 23. So Krishna says to Uddhava, an intelligent person should should never read literature that does not describe my acts, which purify the entire universe. It is I who creates, maintains, and annihilates the cosmic manifestation. Any so-called knowledge that doesn't recognize these activities of mine is simply barren. It is not acceptable to those who are actually intelligent.
Here's the verse in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Exactly. And you're going to recite the Sanskrit for us, right? I am going to cheat. This is in chapter 5 of the first canto. Anybody remember? Now, just in the last couple of classes, we found connections from these verses to chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita and chapter 5 of the first canto. And here we are, chapter 12 again, and chapter 5 of the first canto again. Weird, huh?
What verse were you looking at?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
What verse were you looking at in the first canto?
I have a hearing problem, so everything.
What verse will you be looking at in the Bhagavatam?
Oh, it starts with verse 8 in the 5th canto. I mean, 5th chapter of the first canto. But that's not the verse we're really going to be looking at. Because, does anybody remember what's happening in the 5th chapter of the first canto?
Isn't it with Ashvatam?
Beg your pardon?
Isn't it with Ashvatam?
It isn't.
Isn't it?
We have two interlocutors. We have two people speaking here.
Oh, Narada, yes.
Narada and Vyas. And Vyasa's situation is he's bummed. He's depressed.
Oh, okay.
He's immersed in Vishada. After having gone through putting together all these scriptures, including Mahabharata, which is meant to explain Dharma in story form so people in Kali Yuga will pay attention. They're not going to, how many of us are sitting around memorizing Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishads and the Samhitas? It's not happening. Give us a melodrama, give us a soap opera, we're down, right? You tell a story with romance, intrigue, murder, internecine war, sex, all this politics. We love this stuff, right? We can't get enough of it. Therefore, we're all over the internet, and we're watching so many things on the TV and all that stuff. So, and most of us like going to movies because we just can't get enough of it. Some of us can't stand them. Some of us are a little clearer than others. So that's a cool thing. So, where am I? So Narada Muni said, here's your problem. You have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. And then he says, although, great sage, you have very broadly described the four principles beginning with religious performances, you have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality of Vasudeva. So you've done a good job of laying out how to pursue dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. But is this book about dharma, artha, kama, and moksha? What is it? What's its attitude toward dharma, artha, kama, and
Cheating religion.
this is cheating religion, right? Kaitava dharma calls it. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, as we pointed out, Krishna Das Kaviraj makes it pretty clear. When I talk about cheating, when he talks about that second verse in the first chapter of the first canto, second verse of the Bhagavatam, which actually tells what the Bhagavatam's main point is and who its audience is. I mean, how many books announce to you its purpose and audience? Usually we have to try to discern that somehow, right? When we read a book, who's the audience? Who's this written for? And what's the point this author's trying to make? We have to read the whole book. Bhagavatam tells us straight out. Got a thesis statement right there. Boys and girls in English 101. San Diego State. Let's talk about that. Dharma prauchita kartavatra paramo. And so he starts off, here's who's eligible to understand this. People who have already sarvadharma parityajat, right? Who does kaitava dharma praujita completely, who've already completely given up all kinds of cheating religion, the pursuit of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, and whose hearts therefore are completely pure. So they don't have any envy. They don't want. There's nothing the material energy has to offer them that they see of any value. So why jockey for position in line to get theirs? Because they realize it's not mine. It doesn't have anything to do with me. Like garbage in the street, right? It's about as interesting as garbage in the street. So who's eligible? So here he says, so he's kind of tuning Srila Vyasadeva up a little bit here. Okay, here's why you're all out of sorts. You've done a really good job of laying out the pursuit of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, but guess what? That doesn't get it done. You still missed directly glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. So then he says, "Yeah, na yadvachas chitura padam hare yasho jagat pavitram pragranita karhichit tadvayasam tirtam ushanti manasa na yatra hamsa niramantu shik chaya." Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can satisfy the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like a place of pilgrimage for crows. Where do the crows hang out? Garbage dump. I'm not talking about the cool transfer station that's got all the, you got to have your rubbish all sealed up in your big tall kitchen bags, big plastic bags or whatever like that, and then you got your plastic here and your metal here and your paper there. We're talking about an old-time dump. Or like you've seen movies like Koyaanisqatsi or Samsara, where you got people who live at these huge mountains of rubbish. And that's where all the garbage is just kind of thrown there together. Old-timey dumps. Some of you probably haven't seen such things. I used to take stuff to the dump, and I would think, wow, this is kind of an interesting place, because you got all kinds of stuff there. Garbage dump, in other words, right? Since all perfected persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they don't derive any pleasure there. So then we go back to this verse, the first of tonight's verses from the 11th canto. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes an interesting comment. He kind of paraphrases this verse probably in simpler Sanskrit rather than the Sanskrit verse composed by Vyasadeva. Probably simple Sanskrit prose. And he says, those literatures that do not glorify the pastimes of my various incarnations. And in the verse, he uses the term Leela Avatara. And in the BBT translation, this is something that I spent some time fussing with today, consulted with Guru Maharaj, and didn't get the kind of help I was hoping for. They say, of all the Leela avatars, Krishna and Balaram are the most endearing. Now, it's not there in the verse, literally. And Srila Prabhupada hasn't translated this verse anywhere else in his books. If you look in the database for this book, you get one hit, and that's right here in the 11th chapter of the 11th canto. So I was trying to figure out, I like it a lot. I mean, who among us doesn't, right? We're kind of Krishna and Balaram fanatics. Paul Ki.
Jai.
So, I mean, that's us. So I wrote him and I said, you know, I really like that, but I can't figure out where it comes from in the verse. I can't figure out why it's there. And you know, he wrote me back. Actually, Krishna and Balaram are, all caps, the most charming of the Leela avatars. That was his whole response. I said, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I dig it, but that's not exactly what I was looking for. I was trying to figure out what to do with it. So I thought I would just drop it in there and mention them, let you all see if anybody else will lose any sleep over it. He says, those literatures that don't glorify the pastimes of my various incarnations, which are beneficial to all living entities throughout the universe, are to be avoided by saintly persons. Even Vedic statements that are devoid of glorification of my transcendental pastimes should never be studied by learned persons. That's a pretty intense statement. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur likes to do that sometimes. He likes to state things in strong terms. Sometimes he likes to play the Purva Pakshin, what we would call in our culture devil's advocate, right? It's a pretty strong statement. Even the Vedas, it's like anathema, you know. Who wants to read all this stuff? Because it's not going to satisfy the soul. So by saying this, by making this point in the negative, in such strong terms, Krishna is saying, he says, an intelligent person should never read any such literature. He's saying, if you want to be dhira, because we've talked about the liberated soul being dhira, not affected by the modes of material nature, right? Not concerned about whether it's night or day because he's on the sun, that kind of thing. So if you want to be a dhira, immerse yourself in hearing and broadcasting books that directly discuss my glories and activities, which are beneficial to all living beings. Now, there's a connection there with something read more recently, which probably maybe 3 or 4 of us are aware of from this morning we talked about. Who are we reading about this morning? Pradyumna Mishra was all freaked out by Ramananda Roy. He went to see Ramananda Roy to get spiritual instruction, and he walked in on Ramananda Roy bathing these 2 beautiful dancing girls, bathing and massaging them with oil. Just gonna leave it there. And he came back to Lord Chaitanya and he said, I'm not quite sure what to make of this. And Lord Chaitanya says, look, I go to Ramananda Roy for instruction. I go to Ramananda Roy to have my heart purified by the Krishna Katha coming from his lotus mouth. How much are you going to benefit? And he said, why? And what do you see? Now, if you think about it, what did you notice when you saw Ramananda Roy bathing and massaging those 2 beautiful young dancing girls? He was completely undisturbed. His mind and his body weren't changed at all. He's dhira because he's immersed in understanding the moods of Krishna's Rasa Leela. And what does Shukadeva Goswami say about the Rasa Leela? When Maharaj Pariksit asks, I don't get it. Krishna, the bridge to all Dharma, He's messing around at night with other people's wives. And what does Shukadeva Goswami say about that? We read that verse this morning. If
One gets free from all lust by hearing about the rasa dance.
If we hear about the rasa dance with faith and from the proper source, that's actually the cure for lust. That's how purifying these pastimes are. Krishna's rasa lila, which completely bewilders everybody. It's so purifying. It's not that you have to become pure to hear it. You just have to have some faith. That's the whole qualification for bhakti anyway, right? Qualification for bhakti. We were talking about that on the phone yesterday, right? Mm-hmm. Qualification for bhakti is not so that you have to be pure. You have to have some faith in the descriptions of bhakti in the scriptures. That's all. So if you hear with some faith from someone else who has some faith in Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then even the rasa lila is so powerful that it will cleanse your heart even of the nastiest desires, the most exploitative desires, completely possess another person, body, mind, and soul, or whatever it is, all the things, the whole romance that goes on with that kind of love. He says, otherwise, any so-called knowledge that doesn't recognize these activities of mine is simply barren. And it's not acceptable to those who are actually intelligent, those who are actually Dita. They're not interested in all that other stuff. Now, there's another example that I heard Srila Prabhupada discuss of what we mean when we say dhira, someone who's completely undisturbed, whose body and mind don't change, even when there's what we would consider an intimate stimulation, and that's Lord Shiva. Srila Prabhupada, in one talk, discussed how when he was studying Sanskrit at Scottish Churches College, they read, I think it's Kalidas, a play by Kalidas called Kumar Sambhava. I think that's the right one. And in that Leela, Himavati, the daughter of the Himalayas, or Durga, Parvati, approaches Lord Shiva. Now, Lord Digambar, you know what that means? Digambar? Sky-clad. What does sky-clad mean?
Naked.
Naked, dressed by the 10 directions. That's another name for Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva is sitting in meditation, naked, and Parvati approaches him to get a son, if I remember, something like that, encouraged by her father, and she touches Lord Shiva's linga, and he's completely untransformed. He's completely unmoved by that. Prabhupada said, who can do that? Who could even conceive of doing something like that? So when we talk about being here, when we talk about being undisturbed, we're talking about being ultimately that undisturbed. Ramananda Rai Dhira, Lord Shiva Dhira. Not at all. We understand that that nothing here touches me. Anybody remember any of the examples that Krishna gave Uddhava recently that illustrate that? Nothing here touches me any more than
wind.
Huh?
Fragrance in the wind.
The fragrances that the wind carries. The wind's not changed by the fragrances. It doesn't think, oh, I smell so sweet, or ew, now I'm a dump. The wind is not disturbed by those things. And the sun doesn't identify with the things, the bodies of water that it's reflected in. It doesn't think, oh, I'm that pond, or I'm the ocean, or I'm that stream, or anything like that. The sun's the sun. So consciousness that actually is atmarama, actually self-situated, satisfied with its own position as consciousness. Krishnera Nityadas, Jivera Swarupahoy, Krishnera Nityadas, eternal servant of Krishna. That consciousness is not, it's just not affected by these things. And it's naturally attracted to hearing about its source. It's naturally attracted to hearing about Krishna, who's all attractive. He's the source of all wealth, strength, knowledge, beauty, and renunciation. All the things that people find attractive in other people. Yeah? So that's how we act like liberated souls. We find such company that encourages us to live in Srimad Bhagavatam. Because this is the literature. This is Bhagavatam was Narada Muni's prescription, right? He's got his script pad, right? RX. Srimad Bhagavatam. Take constantly, daily, right? As big a dose as you can handle. But for Vyas, it was, first of all, put it together, then take it, right? And it's so wonderful that it actually attracts even Atmaramas, such as Shukadev Goswami, also Digambar, also Skyclad. Why? Didn't need anything, didn't want anything. It was like, it was like, I am consciousness. He was a monist. I am consciousness. And this whole family life thing here that I just found myself pushed into, too entangled, Even though Krishna promised him, oh, you won't be entangled, come on out. As soon as he saw, oh my gosh, family life, he's out. Not even out, bam, out into the forest. And his father's calling, oh, my son, oh, my son. And what's his response?
The trees.
The trees just kind of echoing, oh, my son, oh, kind of mocking him almost, like, oh, yeah. But he had a plan for luring Shukadev back, and that was having devotees go out in the forest in the guise of woodcutters and chanting verses from the Bhagavatam. It was a verse about Putana, right? Lord Brahma. And then there's a connection there with the 14th chapter too, where Lord Brahma is saying, you've already given yourself to Putana and her relatives, because she disguised herself as a devotee. So what do you have left to give the real residents of Vrindavan? I mean, he's just kind of bewildered. This is how magnanimous Krishna is. Lord Brahma, and then earlier in the Bhagavatam we see that, who is there? Who is there to worship who can be anywhere near as magnanimous as Krishna? That he's given Putana the position of a nursemaid. He's given her Vatsalyarati, a kind of Vatsalyarati outside Vrindavan, of course. You don't need that kind of trouble here, but because she disguised herself. I mean, she came to kill him, because she was disguised as a mother, because she was disguised as devotee, Brahma says. You gave yourself to her and her relatives, all those demons who came here to kill you in so many different ways. So, God, what is there left for the residents of Vrindavan? And he says, oh, how fortunate the ladies of Vrindavan are, because they, and the cows and the ladies of Vrindavan, because you drank their milk. directly when you were disguised as their sons and calves. And then he said, so that's a nod to Vatsalya Rati. And then in the next verse he says, abhidheya, nandakopavicharas. Yan mitram paramanandam namasana. Oh, how fortunate are Nanda and all the residents of Vrindavan. Yan mitram paramanandam, the supreme bliss, Purna Brahma Sanatanam, the eternal, absolute, complete truth, is living among them. Yan mitram is their friend. This is acknowledging Sakya Bhakti. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about Srimad Bhagavatam. We're talking about something that's, well, it's just not like anything else. There isn't even Vedic literature. Those are air quotes. Oh, you can see them. Those are, and for those are air quotes for those out in iPod. Even Vedic literature that doesn't directly glorify the transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in all of his avatars, but especially Vasudeva Krishna, Nanda Nandana, Jashoda Nandana, Radha Ramana. They're useless. They're a distraction. They're no better than a garbage dump. So if we actually give ourselves to hearing in the association of devotees, then we can become liberated. We get out of the shadow, right? Get out of the shade, out into the sun. There's no question of night and day. There's no question of Maya. There is nothing but Krishna and his energies. That's the perspective of the liberated soul. It's all about Krishna. Anybody have anything to add or questions? Anything I've done to confuse?
How do you check your spiritual progress?
One is you need to know what the signs are of spiritual progress. So, Dulal Chandra Prabhu took us through a tour of Madhurya Kadambini. Know the signs on that bhakti marg from Shraddha to prema and beyond. Because there's several different stages of prema as well, right? And it continues to grow, just snowballs and snowballs, and gets bigger and more all-consuming. So we know what a little faith looks like. Shraddha. We know what it's like to associate with devotees. Are we actually taking the association of devotees? Not are we just hanging out with devotees? Not just do we go to the movies with devotees, or do we get together at so-and-so's house who has a big screen TV to watch the game on Sunday afternoon, eat nachos and drink O'Doul's. I've seen it. I haven't seen it. I know it was happening, but they didn't invite me, even though I was a friend, because I think they thought I wouldn't enjoy it. I'd probably hang out with the devotees. I don't mind O'Doul's on a hot day. It's very quenching, very thirst quenching. Then so is water. Nachos, they're delicious. They're salty and greasy and corny and cheesy. What's not to like, right? But I certainly don't need them. So they were kind to me in that, I guess, that they figured out he's too snooty to come hang out and watch football game and drink O'Doul's with us, cheer on the Chargers or whoever. but actually, hearing and chanting together. And when we talk about these things, try to flesh these ideas out. Bodhayantas param, right? We're always enlightening one another, conversing about me. That's association with devotees. And then bhajana kriya, so many levels of bhajana kriya, from unsteady to steady. And then nishtha. What is nishtha? What does steady practice look like? Solid, rock solid practice look like? And there's even bumps there. But once you get past nishtha, it's like it's downhill. So you kind of coast through ruchi asakti into the valley of bhava and prema. You hang out in the temple of prema down there in the valley. So, we study books like Srimad Bhagavatam and Madhurya Kadamba because these are discussed also. These stages are discussed in the second chapter of the first canto. So we study Srimad Bhagavatam or the Acharya's books like Madhurya Kadambini. And now you're also hearing from Dulal about Rupa Goswami's Upadeshamrita, with those things that are favorable and those things that aren't particularly favorable, things that can be obstacles to devotional progress. So we just check the signs. And if we're not sure, then we ask. What do you think? We find people, the devotees in whom we have some confidence. And we ask them, well, what do you think? How do you think I'm doing? What about this thing? What about that thing? I'm a little worried about such and such. What do you think that says about where I'm at? We see that even in Jagadharma. One devotee asks the speaker at one of the gatherings, because he's talked about the different stages, the different Kanishta bhaktas, the Madhyama bhaktas, and the Uttama bhaktas. And he says, so where do you think I'm situated on this spectrum? And the speaker, the guru, asks him, well, what about such and such? And how do you feel about this? And how do you feel about that? And he answers and he says, yeah, it sounds like to me like you're a Madhyama bhakta. You're making progress. Way to go. Good job. Gold star. So we check. We check however we can. We look out at the signs. We check the GPS. We look at the map. All the different things. It's a good question. And I'm glad you asked it because I left that part open, didn't I? See if somebody was watching. Anything else?
Where do we find you in iPod land?
Well, right here on my phone. So far, I reside in my phone. These things take time and effort. I'm working on it. Anything else? Okay. Thank you so much for your patience. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Bhaktavinda ki jai.
So for everyone who's curious, there's the broccoli separated into little pieces
Nice.
in the freezer.
Oh, in the freezer?
There's two.